A lot of people, I, I, I don't really partake in a lot of the online discussion, but I will observe from afar. And
Same.
it is always interesting to me to see how short-sighted a lot of the audience is, where they forget about like 2 seasons ago, something that happened. Like season 8 had almost the exact same ending as season 11, right? It was a very much like a this could be the end. Season 10 did the same thing with Lisa's speech, and then of course Scandival broke, and we got one more episode. And then the rumors fly, well, season 10 was supposed to be the end. It's like no one said that. Season 9, we got a weird ending, but that was COVID season. They knew they were going to come back. Season 7, we had a weird, like all of these things, they want to hedge their bets, right? They want to say, like, if for whatever reason we don't get back, we give people closure at the end of a season, and that's fine. Season 11 did feel a little bit different because what the hell are we going to do? Who do we want to bring back? Let alone who wants to come back. Who do we want to have come back on this show? Because we don't want a repeat of season 11. It had its moments, but we can't do this a second time. So, hearing the complaints and the positives about this season 12, like everyone wants to say Vanderpump Rules is over, dot dot dot, as we know it. And it's like, well, duh. It's this new Real Housewives of New York mentality, right? But Vanderpump Rules is not Real Housewives of New York. There was no Ramona or Sonia on Vanderpump Rules, as much as Lala may have tried. This is what needs to happen. They'll figure out what to do with the cast, the old OG casts, at a different point in time. Give them the breathing room because they're not ready to film another show as much as they may think that they are. And look, we had a bad taste in our mouth from season 8 where for some reason they decided they wanted to bring on Brett, Max, Dana, Danica, Charlie. And then it's like, whoa, fatigue, fatigue. Give us one season where they float in and out and then bring them on as mains. So people are worried that it's going to be like that when in actuality, the way I see it, and from hearing Peter, I will say Peter's theories on this, because as we all know, it's not done. It's not in the can. We don't know exactly where it's going to go. But after having the conversation with him on Vanderpump Robs, Peter is not the busboy that everyone met as a busboy. People forget that when Stassi dated Peter and Katie dated Peter, he was a busboy, right? He was not a manager then. Now he's only a manager, has helped hire some of these people at the show. So whether or not Peter has a large role on season 12 is beyond the point, besides the point. We have a Peter as a manager coming in who's got experience and can just be like someone almost like a Lisa Vanderpump to this new cast of people that he's worked with as a manager. And I believe that the people who get cast for season 12, some will have worked at Sir, some will have been hired to be on the show, and they're not going to want to be a Tom Sandoval. They're not going to want to be James Kennedy. They're not going to want to be Lala. They're going to want to stand out on their own, but they also, like, fingers crossed, are forward thinking enough that they also have to be authentic. Like, I'm sorry, I just finished watching Vanderpump Villa for the first time, and as much as like I really liked Steven and Andre and Emily and Grace, they were about the only people that came in there with any sort of authenticity. Everyone else was like, I'm hired for a show. I also have waited tables in the past, but I know how to bring the drama. And it's like it's not as cut and dry as that. And I hope that we get that from season 12.
I do too. I mean, I have said the same thing. I think in a way, Peter will be there, just I don't know how big a role, but I think,
Yeah.
consistency, we will show him. I do not think we'll see any of the OGs just because it's like jumping the shark in the first
Yeah.
season. We're not going to do it. It's just like every other reboot. Like we don't want it. I mean, Bravo Evolution does not want you to watch this show and say, "There's the Stassi, there's the Tom, there's the
Yep.
Lala." That is the last thing they want. So they will distance themselves from the OG cast. I think maybe Peter will be there. I hope that most of them actually work at Sir. I think yes,
Yeah.
some will be hired. I have said the same thing 100 times. Like you just, I mean, it was so authentic as was every reality show. That's the whole problem with New York. This has such a greater potential because New
Yes.
York is just housewives, which is really nothing. It's a group of friends. And now we have a group of people that weren't friends, that there's no substance there. This is like, you mean to tell me that people that work at SUR right now have not slept with each other? Maybe we'll talk and maybe this one and this one slept with someone else and that person's right down the street waiting tables at the Abbey or something, and they happen to be good looking. And so, like, we could bring in people. It's got to be authentic. And I agree. If you really try to say, look at what Ariana has done, Stassi has $1 million podcast deal. I mean, guys, that is 10 years away. It is a decade away. It's just you got to be authentic. That is like if they try to have their moment and they're over the top, this audience is not going to put up with it. They won't.
No. Brady from the podcast Recap Rodeo had the perfect pitch for how to bring in this new cast. And I
Yeah.
keep thinking about it. Give the OG cast. Now look, I'm gonna evolve on his idea just a little bit, but basically it was like give the OG cast one more shortened like 4 episode season where it's less about the drama and more about like VH1's Where Are They Now, and then bring them to like the Friends-esque HBO reunion where they all come together to have dinner if they're invited and if they decide to show up, and the new cast has to serve that table, much like the cast serving the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills when we were still in crossover era. And I think that like that idea on like the first 2 episodes of season 12 would have worked. Like we're having a final meal, whoever shows up shows up. We're saying farewell, and then we're getting introduced to this new cast in a way that feels a little bit more authentic. But they're not going to do that. Hey, maybe they will. Maybe
You
they
know
will.
what
Maybe
I
they'll
think
pick
they're
up
going to
cameras.
do?
But what's that?
Your idea and this other person's idea, but I think they're going to do this to just keep the OGs out of it. I think it will be, I don't know, Zach or Janet or Michelle's birthday, and they will
Yeah.
go to Sir, and you will have Jax and Brittany and Janet and Jesse and whatever Zach sitting around, and they will have their meal. And after that episode of The Valley, they will say, "Excuse me, this is not well done enough." And the girl will go to the back and she'll be like, "What a fucking bitch. That Brittany,
Yeah.
who's this? Brittany's a bitch." And that'll be it. And these
Yeah.
that table will be forgotten about. I
I think
think
you're
that's
right.
gonna
That'll
happen. I
be,
think the Valley is gonna spin this off with Brittany and Jackson, Dodie and Janet and all them too, not just the Vanderpump people. I'm convinced that's what's gonna happen.
yeah, because if we look at the timeline, it looks like they're not even going to start filming the new Vanderpump season until most likely late January would be the earliest that they really start filming this thing. And that's if they decide who's even going to be in the show yet. You know, like a little bird told me, not Peter, I'll tell you that, someone else that I know in WeHo is like, they haven't even decided who's going to be on the show yet. Like they filmed a sizzle and that's it, but nothing is defined on who's doing it. So at the earliest, it's like the last week of January that they're filming this thing. And if the Valley has already filmed,